Silence hit the tent like a weight. Ithamar didn't cry out. He just stepped closer and put his hand under Aaron's elbow. Steady, firm, like a post holding up a door frame. People watched, waiting for a reaction, a speech, anything. Ithamar said nothing. He looked at the linen, the lamp, the ash, and chose to keep serving. But his eyes asked one question. How do you keep standing when your own house breaks? The next morning, Ithamar washed his hands again and again. Water ran over his fingers, but it didn't take the memory with it. Aaron's voice was rough. We don't stop. Ithamar nodded, even as whispers moved through the camp like wind through dry grass. He carried the tools, counted the offerings, watched the fire. Every sound felt too loud. Then a runner came, urgent, pale, saying Moses wanted them now. Moses didn't shout. That was worse. His eyes went from Aaron to Ithamar like he was counting what was left. The fire must not go out, he said quietly. Ithamar felt Aaron sway beside him. So Ithamar answered first. It will not. He didn't promise feelings. He promised service. Moses held the silence a moment longer, then added, and the people must see order, not fear. Outside, the camp was already watching. That night, Ithamar heard the fire before he saw it. Soft crackle, steady breath. He checked the wood, then the ash, then the wind. Everything had rules now. One wrong step, and the camp would turn his family into a warning. Aaron sat in the shadows, staring at nothing. Ithamar knelt beside him and set the next portion in place, not as a show, as a shield. Then footsteps came, fast. Someone was coming to question the priesthood itself. The man didn't come alone. 2 elders followed him, faces tight. Is the Lord still with you? He asked, not cruel, just afraid. Ithamar felt the question like a blade with no handle. Aaron's mouth opened, then closed. So Ithamar spoke again. The service continues. The fire continues? He led them to the altar, not to argue, but to show the order of it. The elders watched the steady flame, and then one of them whispered, But where are the other sons? Ithamar didn't flinch at the name that wasn't said. He kept his eyes on the flame. They are with God, he answered, simple, careful. The elders traded looks. Fear wanted a story. Ithamar gave them routine instead, measured steps, clean hands, the right portion at the right time. When they finally left, the courtyard felt wider and colder. Aaron exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for hours. Then Moses returned with a new command that would test their silence. Moses held a small portion of meat in cloth. This was for you, he said, voice tight. Why wasn't it eaten in the holy place? The words landed heavy. Ithamar looked to Aaron, still silent, still shaken. The rules were clear. The day had not been. Ithamar swallowed and chose honesty over defense. We feared to do it wrong, he said. Moses' eyes narrowed like fire searching for smoke. Fear can also disobey, he replied, and Ithamar realized even caution could become a trap. Ithamar felt every eye in the courtyard, not the crowd, just the few who mattered, Moses, Aaron, and the unseen God they feared to offend. He pictured his brother's empty places like gaps in a wall. One more crack, and everything falls. Tell me what to do, Ithamar said, voice low. Moses didn't soften. Learn the difference, he answered, between holy fear and hiding. Aaron finally spoke, barely audible. My son, stay with the command. And Ithamar knew tomorrow would demand more than steady hands. Morning brought new offerings and new watchers. Ithamar could feel them counting his steps, waiting for a slip. He tied his sash tighter, not for style, but like a vow. Aaron's hands trembled when he lifted the bread. Ithamar moved in without being asked, steadying the tray, taking weight without taking attention. A child near the courtyard edge whispered, That one is the quiet son. Ithamar heard it and kept working. Then a shout rose from the camp. Someone had brought an unclean thing too close to the holy place. The shout cut through prayer like a stone through cloth. Ithamar turned and saw a man frozen at the boundary, holding something he shouldn't. Not evil, just careless. People surged, then stopped, afraid to step closer. Ithamar walked first. Slow, clear. He raised his palm, not angry. Warning. "Stay there," he said. The man's eyes filled with panic. One wrong move and fear would become a riot. Ithamar took a breath and chose a third path. Not punishment, not denial, but order. Then Moses appeared behind him, watching what Ithamar would do next. Ithamar didn't reach for the bundle. He reached for the man's shoulders, turning him away from the line with gentle force. "Step back. Breathe," he murmured. The crowd leaned in, hungry for blame. Ithamar kept his voice low, so only the man heard. "You didn't mean it, but meaning won't protect you." He signaled Levites to clear a path and wash the area. No drama, just correction. Moses' gaze stayed sharp. After the man was led away, Moses spoke once. "Good. Now teach them before fear teaches them first." And Ithamar realized his job wasn't only service, it was prevention. By evening, Ithamar's throat felt dry from speaking softly all day. He gathered a small circle of Levites near the laver. "Hear me," he said. "The holy place is not a stage. It's a line you don't cross by accident." They nodded, but their eyes kept drifting to the tent, like it might bite. Ithamar picked up a simple basin and showed them the steps, slow and clear. "We don't guess," he said. "We ask." One young Levite frowned. "And if Moses is not here?" he asked. Ithamar paused because the answer could cost him. "Then you come to me," he said. And the weight of that sentence settled on his shoulders. That night, Aaron finally ate a little, slow as if each bite was permission to live. Ithamar sat nearby, listening to the fire and the distant camp. "You shouldn't carry this alone," Aaron whispered. Ithamar kept his eyes on the coals. "I'm not alone," he answered, though it felt like a lie. Outside someone laughed, too loud, and it snapped in the dark like a whip. Ithamar's hand tightened around his sash. Joy sounded dangerous now. Then a shadow moved near the entrance. Not a Levite, not a priest, a stranger, hesitating, holding something small in both hands. The stranger didn't step in. He just stood where light met dark, like he was waiting to be chased away. Ithamar rose first, slow enough not to scare him. "State your purpose," Ithamar said. The man swallowed. I brought an offering," he whispered, hands shaking around a small cage. A bird fluttered inside. Ithamar's mind raced through rules, through risks, through eyes watching. He could send the man away and stay safe, or he could guide him and risk a mistake in front of everyone. Aaron didn't move. Moses wasn't there. The choice was Ithamar's. And every quiet son knows the hardest test comes when no one is looking. Ithamar guided the man to the side, away from the center where gossip liked to stand. "Show me," he said. The bird beat its wings softly, trapped and confused. The man's voice cracked. "My wife is sick. I don't know the steps." Ithamar felt the pull of mercy and the pull of fear. He checked the man's hands, his clothes, the cage latch, every small detail. "We will do it clean," Ithamar said. "Slow." The man nodded too fast. Then, from behind them, a Levite muttered, "Why do you help outsiders first?" The question wasn't about the bird. It was about authority. Ithamar didn't turn to the Levite right away. He kept his hand steady on the cage, like steadiness itself was an answer. "Not outsiders," he said at last. "People." His voice stayed quiet, but it carried. The Levite scoffed. "And when we get blamed, will people defend us?" Ithamar felt the sting, because it was true. One mistake in mercy becomes scandal. He looked at the stranger, then at the boundary line, then back at the Levite. "Order protects mercy," Ithamar said. "That's why we do it right." The Levite's eyes narrowed. "Then prove it," he whispered, loud enough for others to hear, and suddenly the small offering felt like a public trial. Ithamar led them to the laver first. He made the stranger wash, slow, full, no shortcuts. The Levite watched like a judge. "Say each step," Ithamar told the man. The stranger repeated the words with shaky breath. Around them, silence grew thick. Ithamar could almost feel his brother's absence pressing close, warning him not to improvise. When the man reached for the cage again, his fingers slipped. The latch clicked, half open. The bird inside jolted. Ithamar's heart jumped. If it escaped, it would look like chaos, and chaos near the holy place was a spark in dry grass. Ithamar moved before anyone spoke. 2 fingers, quick and precise. He snapped the latch shut without grabbing, without panic. The bird thumped once, then settled. The stranger's face went pale. The Levite's mouth tightened, disappointed he hadn't seen a failure. Ithamar kept his voice low. "Hold it like this," he said, showing the grip. "Let the offering be calm before you bring it near." The stranger nodded, swallowing hard. Then Ithamar did something risky. He asked the Levite to stand beside him. "Watch closely," Ithamar said, "and learn." The Levite bristled, because learning meant admitting Ithamar was leading. They approached the altar, not straight on, but along the marked path Ithamar always used, steps that kept fear from becoming improvisation. The Levite stayed close, counting under his breath like numbers could keep God pleased. The stranger's knees shook. "Look at me," Ithamar said. "Not the fire." The man obeyed, blinking fast. Ithamar took the cage only when the man's grip steadied. "We do this together," Ithamar whispered. Then a voice from the shadows cut in. "Together? Since when does he decide?" A second Levite stepped forward, older, harder, and Ithamar felt the ground shift. This wasn't about sacrifice anymore. It was about who speaks when Aaron cannot. Ithamar didn't answer the older Levite right away. He kept the offering safe, kept the man calm, kept the line unbroken. Only when the cage was secure in his hands did he turn. "I decide nothing," Ithamar said. "The command decides." The older Levite snorted. "Convenient words." The crowd's breath gathered behind them. Ithamar felt Aaron's silence like a hole in the air. If he stepped back, disorder would speak. If he stepped forward, pride could be blamed. He chose the narrow middle. "If you think I'm wrong," he said, "stand here and do it." The older Levite hesitated, because to take the place meant to take the risk. And in that hesitation, everyone saw the truth. The older Levite's eyes flicked to the altar fire. He knew what taking that spot meant. He wanted authority without heat. Ithamar waited, still as a post. The stranger's hands trembled again, sensing conflict. Finally, the Levite stepped back with a forced laugh. "Fine, do it," he said like permission. Ithamar didn't take the bait. He nodded once and turned to the offering, speaking the steps aloud so everyone heard the same order. The bird quieted. The man breathed. The crowd relaxed. Just a little. Then Aaron rose from the shadows and walked toward them, slow and heavy. His presence wasn't comfort. It was a warning. The high priest had seen it all. Aaron's steps were slow, but they pulled every gaze. The courtyard went quiet, like even the fire listened. Ithamar lowered his eyes, not in shame, just in respect. Aaron stopped beside him and looked at the stranger's offering. For a moment, Ithamar feared Aaron would take over, speak loud, reclaim the space. But Aaron did something smaller. He placed his hand on Ithamar's shoulder, not a ceremony, a weight, a yes. The older Levite saw it and stiffened. His challenge had missed its target. Now it looked like rebellion. He opened his mouth to recover, to twist the moment, but Aaron finally spoke, soft, scraped raw by grief. "We will keep the command. We will not add to it. We will not subtract." Ithamar felt his chest loosen, not because the danger was gone, because the line was clear again. Then the stranger whispered, Will God still hear me? Ithamar glanced at Aaron. Aaron didn't answer, so Ithamar did. Do the steps, he said. And yes. They finished the offering with careful order. When it was done, the older Levite walked away fast, avoiding Aaron's eyes. Ithamar watched him go and knew this wasn't over. A man embarrassed in public doesn't forget. He waits. The next day, the air felt different, not louder, sharper. Ithamar noticed small things. Levites pausing mid-task when he passed, eyes sliding away too late. Respect and resentment can wear the same face. He stayed busy. Inventory, ash, bread, oil, a list of duties that never ended, service without applause. But the older Levite's shadow kept showing up where it didn't belong, near the storeroom, near the gate, near the men who loved to talk. Near noon, Moses called for Ithamar, not Aaron. Ithamar's stomach tightened. Inside, Moses laid out cords and hooks, speaking like a man building a wall against chaos. The Levites must guard, Moses said, but they also must obey. He looked straight at Ithamar. You will assign their watches. Ithamar blinked. That wasn't a task. That was authority. Outside, the older Levite was waiting, as if he'd sensed it. So, he said, voice sweet like spoiled fruit, you're giving orders now? Ithamar could feel the courtyard listening without looking. He could answer with pride or with fear. He chose neither. I'm giving schedules, Ithamar said, calm. The command gives the orders. The older Levite smiled because he'd found a new angle. Then, when the command is unclear, he whispered, who will they blame? And Ithamar realized the fight wouldn't be over fire, it would be over blame. That evening, Ithamar sat with a charcoal nub and marked the watches on a flat piece of wood. Names, hours, gates, curtains, the kind of work no one sings about. Each mark felt like placing stones in a fragile wall. A young Levite hovered nearby. Why do they listen to you? He asked, trying to sound casual. Ithamar didn't look up. Because someone has to listen to God, he said. The young man shifted. And if they don't? Ithamar's hand paused mid-mark. He pictured the older Levite's smile. He pictured Aaron's grief. Then we still do what's right, he said. Simple words, heavy cost. Later, when the first watch began, Ithamar walked the boundary with them, quiet steps on packed earth, torchlight flickering on linen. He didn't command from a distance. He stood where mistakes happen. At the north gate, he found something wrong. A rope knot, retied. Not broken, not sloppy, changed. Only someone trained would touch it. He called the guard closer and pointed. Who adjusted this? The Levite frowned. No one, sir. The answer was too fast. Ithamar's stomach sank. This wasn't carelessness. It was a message. I can change the holy place and you won't even know. He fixed the knot himself, slow and visible, then whispered to the guard, Don't guess. Watch. As he walked away, he felt eyes on his back, smiling in the dark. Ithamar didn't accuse anyone. Accusations made noise, and noise fed fear. Instead, he changed his own rule. He stopped walking the same path twice. He checked the west curtain first, then doubled back to the east. He watched hands more than faces. A man can smile and still loosen a knot. Near midnight, he caught a flicker, someone moving where only guards should stand. Ithamar followed at a distance, keeping to the dark side of the posts. The figure paused by a stack of poles and cords, crouched, and slipped something under the canvas cover. Ithamar's pulse tightened. If it was defilement, the camp would explode. If it was a stolen tool, the service would stall. Either way, blame would find Aaron's house. He stepped closer, silent as ash. Stop, he said, not loud. Final. The figure froze. Slowly it turned, not the older Levite, a younger one, the same guard from the north gate. His eyes were wet. I didn't want to, he whispered. They said, if I don't help, I lose my place. Ithamar looked down at the covered bundle. One corner showed a priestly cord, clean, valuable, and easy to misuse. "Who is they?" Ithamar asked. The guard swallowed and glanced toward the shadows where the tents began, and from that darkness someone answered with a soft laugh. "Careful, Ithamar. You're learning too much." Ithamar didn't chase the laugh. He stayed with the thing in front of him, a scared guard and a hidden cord. If he ran, the boy might bolt. If he shouted, the camp would wake angry. He crouched beside the guard. "Listen," Ithamar said, voice low. "You're not trapped. You're being used." The guard shook his head fast. "They said you'd blame me. They said Aaron's house needs a scapegoat." That word burned. Scapegoat. Ithamar looked at the cord again. Clean. Official. The kind of object that could prove a theft if it showed up in the wrong hands. He lifted the canvas slowly, making sure the torchlight saw his hands. Then he did something the older Levite wouldn't expect. He placed the cord back on top, visible, and tied the cover with a simple knot anyone could recognize. "No secrets?" Ithamar said. "We bring this to Moses at first light?" The guard's eyes widened. "Moses will punish me." "Maybe," Ithamar said, "but a lie will punish you longer." A wind moved through the courtyard, fluttering the curtain. Ithamar felt watched again. The darkness near the tents didn't move, but it felt closer. "Go," Ithamar told the guard. "Stand your post, and if anyone asks, you saw nothing." The guard hesitated. "And you?" Ithamar stared into the dark. "I'll stay awake." Because now he knew the game. Someone wanted the holy place to look careless, so Aaron's house would fall without a fight. Before dawn, Ithamar walked to Moses' tent with a cord wrapped in plain cloth. Nothing fancy, nothing hidden. The sky was still gray, the camp half asleep. That's when rumors are born. Moses listened without interrupting. His face didn't change, but his fingers tightened on his staff. When Ithamar finished, Moses spoke like a judge who hates the case. "Someone is testing the holy place," he said, "and they want you to panic." Ithamar nodded. "They want a mistake," he whispered. Moses stood and stepped outside. Cold air hit their faces. "Bring the head Levites," Moses said. "All of them." Minutes later, men gathered near the entrance, some alert, some irritated, some already defensive. The older Levite arrived last, calm as if nothing in the night could touch him. Moses held up the cord. "Who handled the storeroom last night?" he asked. A pause. Too long. The older Levite smiled politely. "Many hands serve, my lord." Moses' eyes sharpened. "Then many hands will be questioned." Ithamar felt the courtyard tighten around them. This could turn into a hunt. Messy, loud, humiliating. And the older Levite wanted that. Ithamar could see it. If everyone is suspected, no one is guilty. Confusion becomes cover. So Ithamar made a decision that could ruin him. He stepped forward and said, "Question the watches I assigned. Start with the north gate." The young guard flinched, and the older Levite's smile finally cracked. The questioning began with simple things. Times, paths, who stood where, who carried water. It sounded ordinary, like the kind of accounting Ithamar did every day, but every answer was a stone. Stack enough stones, and you build a trap. The young guard tried to speak steady. "I saw nothing," he said, eyes fixed ahead. Ithamar didn't look at him. He gave the boy one gift. Silence. Moses asked again, slower. "Did anyone approach your post?" The guard's throat moved. "No one?" A murmur rolled through the Levites. Relief, annoyance, boredom. The older Levite's smile returned, thin and sure. Then Moses changed the question. "Who taught you to tie a priest's knot?" The guard blinked. His hands twitched at his sides like they remembered the rope. I don't know," he lied. Ithamar felt the lie land, not because he wanted the boy punished, because now the saboteur had leverage. A guilty guard is a tool. Moses stepped closer and held up the cord's knot. Simple, clean, unmistakably trained. "This knot has a teacher," Moses said. The older Levite cleared his throat. "Many of us teach the young," he offered smoothly. Moses turned his head just enough. "Yes," he said, "and some teach them to fear the wrong things." The air hardened. Ithamar finally looked at the guard, just once. Not anger, a warning. Choose now. The guard's eyes filled, his lips parted, and from the back of the crowd a voice called, "Enough! We all grieve. Why hunt for more trouble?" Ithamar recognized that voice. Another respected Levite, one who could sway men with one sentence. The net was widening, and Ithamar was standing in the middle of it. The respected Levite's words hit like a blanket thrown over a fire. Men nodded. Heads turned from knots to grief, from truth to comfort. It was tempting. Ending conflict feels holy when everyone is tired. Moses didn't move. He just watched the crowd soften. Then he looked at Ithamar, not as a command, an invitation. "Will you let this die?" Ithamar felt his mouth go dry. If he pushed, they would call him harsh. If he stopped, the saboteur would learn a simple lesson. Grief can be used to silence justice. Ithamar stepped forward, slow. "We do grieve," he said. "That's why we must be careful." He kept his voice gentle, almost tired. A loose knot is not only a knot, it becomes a story, and stories spread faster than truth. The respected Levite frowned. "So you suspect your own brothers?" "I suspect fear," Ithamar replied, "and fear makes people hide." The older Levite's eyes narrowed, but he stayed quiet. Let the quiet son speak. Let him sound like an accuser. Moses raised the cord again. "One last time," he said to the guard. "Who told you to touch the storeroom?" The guard's shoulders shook. He looked at the respected Levite, then at the older Levite, then at Ithamar. Ithamar didn't nod, didn't plead. He only held the silence like a line. Tell the truth or step over. The guard whispered, "They said it would be blamed on Aaron." A gasp, small but sharp. Moses' eyes cut to the older Levite, and the older Levite finally spoke, smiling. "A frightened boy says anything to escape trouble." But the smile didn't reach his eyes. It reached the crowd. And the crowd began to choose a side. The courtyard split without anyone stepping. It was in the eyes, in the way men shifted their feet, in who looked at Moses and who looked away. Moses lifted his staff slightly, not threat, attention. "No one leaves," he said. The older Levite chuckled. "Are we prisoners now?" Moses didn't answer him. He addressed the respected Levite instead. "You asked for peace," Moses said. "Then help me keep it. Stand here, hear everything." That was a trap of its own. If the respected Levite stood with Moses, he would offend his friends. If he refused, he would look like cover. The respected Levite hesitated, just a breath too long. Then he stepped forward, slow. "I will hear," he said. The older Levite's smile thinned. He turned his head slightly, signaling to someone in the crowd. Ithamar saw it, a tiny gesture. Practiced. A young Levite slipped backward, quiet as a shadow, aiming for the tents. Ithamar moved, not fast, decisive. He blocked the path with his body. "Where are you going?" he asked, voice low. The young Levite froze. To get Aaron," he stammered. Ithamar stared at him. Aaron was already near. Everyone knew it. "So why lie?" Ithamar whispered. Behind them, Moses said, "Bring Aaron." And at that moment, Ithamar understood the real plan. Turn this into a public showdown between a grieving father and a divided priesthood, until the whole camp loses trust. Aaron stepped into view. His face was calm. Too calm. Aaron's calm felt heavier than anger. The crowd expected tears or rage or silence that hid weakness. Instead, Aaron looked at the cord, at the guard, at the Levites, then at Moses. "What is this?" Aaron asked. Simple. Moses spoke plainly. "Someone touched what was set apart. The boy says it was meant to fall on your house." A ripple moved through the men. Aaron didn't flinch. He only turned to the guard. The guard looked ready to collapse. Aaron's voice stayed low. "Did you touch it?" The guard nodded, barely. Aaron's next words surprised everyone. "Then you will not carry this alone." The older Levite laughed once. "See, even Aaron knows compassion. Let it end." Aaron faced him. "Compassion is not cover," he said. "No shout, no drama, just a line drawn." Ithamar felt his throat tighten. Aaron was standing again, not because grief was gone, because duty had found his spine. Moses held up the knot. "Who taught you?" he asked the guard. The guard stared at the ground. His lips moved without sound. Then he pointed, shaking past Ithamar's shoulder, not at the older Levite, at the respected Levite. A stunned silence. The respected Levite went pale. "No," he breathed. "That's not true." The older Levite's face changed, too fast. Relief, then anger, then calculation. Because the game had flipped. Now the respected man was in danger, and the saboteur could hide behind the chaos he'd just created. Ithamar looked at the guard and realized the boy might be telling the truth, or repeating a new lie fed to him in the night. And either way, someone powerful wanted this courtyard to burn without a flame. The respected Levite lifted both hands, palms out, like he could push the moment back into order. "I taught many boys," he said, voice tight. "A knot is not proof." Some men nodded fast, grateful for a way out. Others stared at him like the ground had shifted under their feet. Moses didn't argue. He asked one question, quiet as a knife. "Did you meet with him last night?" The respected Levite hesitated. Just a breath. But hesitation is a sound in silence. "No," he said. Ithamar watched the older Levite. He was too still, like a man waiting for a door to open. Aaron stepped closer to the guard. "Look at me," he said. The guard tried, failed, then tried again. Aaron's voice softened. "Who spoke to you after you were caught?" The guard swallowed hard. "Someone came," he whispered. "In the dark. They said if I named the older one, I would disappear. They said, 'Name the respected one.'" People will believe it. A low shock moved through the crowd, not loud, dangerous. The respected Levite sagged in relief, then anger. "Who would do that?" he demanded. Ithamar answered in his head, "Someone who wants all trust to collapse." Moses' eyes went to the older Levite, cold now. "Step forward," he said. The older Levite smiled again, small, practiced. "On what charge?" he asked. And in that moment, Ithamar realized the saboteur wasn't afraid of questions. He was counting on them. The older Levite stepped forward like he was walking into a seat he owned. "If you accuse me," he said calm, "you accuse the guard system, you accuse the schedules, you accuse him." He nodded toward Ithamar. A few Levites murmured, "It was clever. Make the quiet son the target. Make order look like control." Ithamar felt heat rise in his face, but he didn't speak. He watched Aaron instead. Aaron's jaw tightened once, then relaxed. A choice. Moses lifted the cord. "This was hidden," he said. "Hidden things rot." The older Levite shrugged. "And yet you have no witness." "I do," Ithamar said suddenly. The courtyard turned. Ithamar raised his hand, slow. "I saw a figure place it under the canvas cover," he said. "I stopped the guard. I covered the cord in plain sight and tied it with a simple knot. So if anyone touched it after, there would be a trace." Moses' eyes narrowed. "Show me the knot." Ithamar walked to the storage cover. He untied it carefully. The knot was different. Not looser, not broken. Replaced. A skilled hand had retied it to match the priest's style, like a signature. The older Levite's smile flickered, just once, then returned. But Ithamar had his proof. Someone with training had come back after midnight, and only a few men had that training. The crowd leaned in, drawn by the knot like it was a verdict. Ithamar stayed on his knees a moment longer, letting everyone see the difference with their own eyes. No speeches, just evidence. Moses straightened. "Only trained hands do this," he said. The older Levite laughed softly. "Trained hands are everywhere, my lord." Moses turned to the respected Levite. "Who besides you teaches knots?" The respected Levite answered quickly now, eager to clear himself. "The older one does," he said, then winced, "because truth can sound like revenge." The older Levite's eyes flashed. "So now you accuse me?" he asked, voice rising just enough to stir the crowd. "After I asked for peace?" Aaron stepped forward, calm but solid. "You didn't ask for peace," he said. "You asked for quiet." That line landed hard. Quiet is what Ithamar lived in, but Aaron was naming the lie. Quiet can be used to hide rot. The older Levite spread his hands. "Where is the sin?" he demanded. "A knot? A cord? You will shame a servant over rope?" Moses' voice stayed flat. "A cord is small, but it holds the curtain, and a curtain guards the holy place." Ithamar rose slowly. He looked at the older Levite and felt something new. Sadness. Not for the man, for what the man was willing to break. "Why?" Ithamar asked, almost a whisper. The older Levite smiled again, but now it had teeth. "Because your house is weak," he said, "and weak houses fall." A hush. Aaron's hand tightened on his garment. Moses lifted his staff. "Guard him," he said to the Levites. The older Levite didn't run. He only leaned closer and whispered where Ithamar could hear, "If you bind my hands, the camp will bind your fathers." And Ithamar knew. The next battle would be fought with words, not ropes. They didn't drag the older Levite. That would make him a martyr. They simply placed 2 guards at his sides and walked him to the edge of the courtyard, where everyone could still see him, close enough to feel the tension, far enough to keep the holy place steady. But the camp was already alive. By midday, whispers spread like smoke. Aaron's sons failed. Now, Aaron's house is grabbing power. Others said the opposite. Levites are rebelling. The priesthood is collapsing. 2 stories, both poisonous, both easy to repeat. Ithamar moved through the tasks with a tight stomach. Every person he passed seemed to choose a version of him without asking who he was. The quiet son, the rising ruler, the scapegoat maker, the puppet of Moses. A young mother stopped him near the tents. Her eyes were red. "Is God angry with us?" she asked, not accusing, terrified. Ithamar wanted to say no, simple, comforting, but lies were part of the poison. He answered with the only thing he trusted. "God is holy," he said. "That doesn't change, but fear can make us do foolish things. Don't follow fear." She nodded slowly, holding her child tighter. That evening, Moses called a meeting, open, public, the kind of meeting that can heal or explode. Aaron sat beside Moses, silent again. Ithamar stood behind his father like a beam behind a wall. The older Levite was brought forward to speak. He lifted his chin and addressed the people loudly. "You see what happens when one family holds the holy place. Mistakes, death, and now chains." The crowd stirred. Then he pointed at Ithamar. "And you," he said, "you pretend humility while you tighten your grip." Ithamar felt every eye turn. Moses didn't defend him. Aaron didn't speak. The quiet son had to choose, stay silent and let the story win, or speak and risk sounding like the power-hungry villain they wanted. Ithamar stepped forward 1 pace, not to take Moses' place, not to steal Aaron's, just enough to be seen as a man, not a rumor. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't defend his honor. He spoke to the fear under the words. "You're right about one thing," Ithamar said, looking at the older Levite, then the crowd. "A mistake near the holy place costs more than pride. It costs trust. It costs peace." The older Levite smiled, thinking he'd won. Ithamar kept going. "But you are wrong about why we hold the line," Ithamar said. "We don't hold it to control you. We hold it so none of us is destroyed by carelessness." A woman in the crowd whispered, "Destroyed?" The word shook. Ithamar nodded once. "I have felt that fear," he said. "I felt it when my brothers were gone and my father could barely stand. I felt it when a man brought an offering and didn't know the steps. Fear told me to send him away. Fear told me to hide. Fear told me to blame. He paused just long enough for the camp to lean in. But the command doesn't change, he continued. So we learn, we ask, we move slow, we keep it clean, not because we are better, but because God is holy. The older Levite cut in, loud. And who decides what is clean? Ithamar turned to Moses and Aaron, then back. Not me, he said. Not you. God. Moses teaches it, Aaron carries it, and we serve it. A murmur rose, less angry now, more uncertain. Then Ithamar did something dangerous. He admitted weakness. If you think my family wants power, he said, then watch our lives. We don't get glory, we get weight. The older Levite's face tightened. He felt the crowd slipping, so he changed tactics. Then release me, he demanded. If you trust God, don't bind me. Ithamar looked at Moses. Moses' eyes asked the same question as before. Will you let this turn into chaos? And Ithamar realized mercy without boundaries can become a weapon. Moses stood. The crowd quieted fast. When Moses moved, people remembered why the sea had opened and why it could close. We will not do this by shouting, Moses said. We will do this by the word given. He turned to the older Levite. You will be held until morning. The older Levite scoffed. So the quiet son wins? Moses didn't even glance at Ithamar. No, he said, truth wins. Then Moses faced the people. Tomorrow we will examine the watches, the storeroom, the knots, and the hearts behind them. The crowd shifted. Some looked relieved, some looked worried, because examination is a light, and not everyone likes light. That night, Ithamar couldn't sleep. He walked the boundary again, alone this time, letting the sand crunch softly under his sandals. The tabernacle stood like a dark mountain with a breathing fire. Aaron came behind him, slow steps. You spoke well, Aaron said, quiet. Ithamar didn't answer right away. I spoke, he said at last, but I don't know if it helped. Aaron's voice trembled. It helped me. Ithamar stopped. That sentence hit harder than any accusation. He turned and saw his father's eyes, tired, proud, still grieving. Then Aaron leaned close and whispered, Be careful. Men who lose power don't sleep. As if the night wanted to agree, a distant sound rose from the tents. Glass? Pottery? Something breaking? A shout followed, then another. Ithamar's hand went to his sash without thinking, because sabotage doesn't always touch ropes. Sometimes it touches people, and the camp was starting to crack. By dawn, the story had changed again. Now people said the Levites were divided into Aaron's men and the people's men. 2 camps inside 1 camp. That's how disaster starts, by naming sides. Moses called the leaders early. Ithamar stood with the schedules in his hands, ink smudged, tired. The older Levite sat under guard, calm as if this was theater. Then the commotion from the night finally reached the meeting. A family's food store had been ruined. Another tent claimed someone stole a lamb. Small crimes. But small crimes make big anger. The respected Levite spoke first. We must calm the camp, he urged. Public punishments will only inflame them. The older Levite nodded, pretending agreement. Yes, he said. Stop hunting for saboteurs. Give the people peace. Ithamar heard the trap. Peace without truth is just delay. Moses asked, Who guarded the food tents last night? Silence. Because no one guarded them, not officially. And that was the point. The holy place had rules. The camp didn't. So fear spread there first. Ithamar stepped forward. Let the Levites watch the camp edges tonight, he said, not as rulers, as servants. We will guard the people and the holy place. The older Levite laughed. Listen to him. He wants to command the whole camp now. Ithamar didn't bite. Schedules, he said, not crowns. Moses stared at Ithamar a long moment, measuring. Then he nodded. Do it, Moses said, and choose men who can't be bought with whispers. Ithamar turned and realized the hardest part. He had to choose guards from men who already suspected him. If he chose his friends, they'd call it favoritism. If he chose his enemies, they'd call it foolishness. And tonight, the saboteur wouldn't need knots. He'd only need one tired man to look away. The breaking sound came again, this time closer. Ithamar moved toward the tents with 2 Levites behind him, torches low. People were already gathering, half-dressed, eyes wide, ready to believe the worst. In the center of the small crowd, a clay jar lay shattered. Next to it, spilled flour looked like a pale stain in the sand. A man pointed at a young priest helper and shouted, "He did it! He cursed the offering!" The boy's face was frozen, not defiant, lost. Ithamar stepped between them. "No touching," he said, firm. The crowd hesitated, surprised by how calm he sounded. The accuser shook with rage. "We're starving, and they guard ropes and knots. Look, our food wasted." Ithamar knelt, sifted the flour with his fingertips. It wasn't just spilled. It had been cut. The jar cracked from the side, not dropped. A deliberate break. He looked up at the accuser. "Where were you standing when it happened?" The man blinked. "Right there," he said too fast. Behind the accuser, a child whispered, "I saw him kick it." The man spun, furious. Ithamar stood. "Enough," he said quietly. "This is not hunger talking. This is someone stirring hunger into a weapon." And somewhere in the dark, a familiar soft laugh echoed, gone before anyone could point. By dawn, the jar story had already grown teeth. Some said the priest wasted food. Some said God was angry again. Fear loves shortcuts. Moses gathered the watchers as promised. But before he could speak, the respected Levite stepped forward, voice smooth and public. "We need peace," he said. "The camp is shaking. Let us release the older Levite and end this division." A wave of agreement moved through tired faces. People wanted the pain to stop. Ithamar felt the trap closing. Release the older Levite now, and everyone learns. Pressure wins. Keep him held, and they say Aaron's house is cruel. Moses looked to Aaron. Aaron's eyes drifted to the ground, too heavy to decide in public. So Ithamar spoke, careful. "Peace without truth is only quiet," he said, "and quiet is what the saboteur uses." The respected Levite frowned. "You call your brothers saboteurs?" "I call the acts sabotage," Ithamar replied. "The knots, the cord, the jar. Someone is shaping stories." Moses lifted his hand. "Bring the jar pieces." They placed the shards on cloth. Ithamar pointed to the crack line. "Not dropped," he said. "Struck." The crowd murmured, uncertain again. Then a voice shouted from the edge, "If you're so sure, name the man." Every head turned to Ithamar, because if he named wrong, he would become the villain, and if he stayed silent, the saboteur would win. Ithamar looked at the older Levite, still calm, still watching, and realized the next move had to be a trap that didn't need a name. Ithamar didn't point at a man. He pointed at a choice. "Tonight," he said to Moses and the leaders, "we change nothing except where the truth can be seen." He lifted the schedule board. "We keep the usual watches, but one extra watch will be hidden, silent, near the storeroom and the food tents, not to fight, to witness." The respected Levite stiffened. The older Levite's smile stayed, but his eyes sharpened. He understood traps. Moses nodded once. "Do it," he said. All day, Ithamar acted normal. Same steps, same calm, same quiet sun. He even spoke kindly to the older Levite as guards moved him, like nothing was personal. The saboteur would expect anger. Ithamar offered routine. At dusk, Ithamar chose his hidden witnesses, 2 Levites with steady hands and empty mouths. He told them one rule. If you see a trained knot tied where it shouldn't be, don't stop it. Let it finish, then follow the hands. Night fell. The camp settled. The fire breathed. Then a shadow moved near the canvas covers. A hand, confident, reached for the cord. Ithamar watched from darkness, heart pounding, not moving, because now he wasn't waiting for a mistake. He was waiting for the saboteur to reveal who he truly served.